You sleep in the same bed, but feel miles apart. You lie there in the dark. The room is quiet except for the slow rhythm of their breathing. The same bed you've shared for years stretches between you like an ocean, and though your fingers could reach out and touch theirs in an instant, it feels as though you would have to travel a lifetime to close the gap. Your back is turned, or maybe theirs is, and in that stillness, you feel something far louder than silence. The absence of connection. You stare at the faint shapes on the ceiling, the soft shadows that dance when the curtains move. Once this sight used to be comforting. The end of another day spent together, a quiet you both created. Now it feels different. The shadows seem longer, the air heavier, and the ceiling has become a place you stare at to avoid looking at each other. You tell yourself it's just tiredness. You tell yourself it's nothing. But your chest knows it is something. There was a time when nights like this were filled with small, precious rituals, when your pillow was a place where laughter ended, where whispered secrets curled into the darkness, and the touch of a hand was enough to calm the storm inside you. Back then, you fell asleep knowing without doubt that you were loved, seen, and chosen. Now, you're not sure if they even notice when you turn away. You're not sure if you do. It's not the absence of arguments that makes this so heavy. It's the absence of presence. No explosive fight, no cruel words, no sudden betrayal. Just an invisible drift, like two boats caught in currents. Neither of you noticed until the distance became impossible to ignore. And the cruelest part, you can't point to a single moment when it began, only that one day you woke up and realized you were no longer waking up together. You remember the last time you laughed so hard you couldn't breathe, how you leaned into each other, gasping between words, unable to stop smiling. You remember how they used to trace circles on your hand while talking about nothing at all, as if your skin itself was worth knowing. These memories are still here, tucked away in the corners of your mind, but they feel like they belong to someone else now. Two people who lived in a warmer time before the drift began. We often think intimacy fades because of something dramatic, an act of betrayal, a monumental fight, but more often it dies quietly. It slips away in the unspoken moments, in the times you chose to look at your phone instead of their eyes, in the days you decided the conversation could wait until tomorrow and tomorrow turned into weeks, in the nights you rolled over without saying goodnight, convincing yourself it was just exhaustion. And so the bed you share becomes something else entirely. Not a place of safety, but a stage where you play the roles of a couple who is still close. You still share blankets, still occupy the same square of space, but something has shifted. Love feels like a photograph, beautiful but still. There's no movement, no growth, just an image of what once was. Sometimes in the middle of the night you wake up and almost reach for them. Your hand hovers there for a moment, inches away, and then you let it fall, not because you don't want to, but because you're afraid they might not reach back. It is a fear you carry silently, the fear of finding out that they have grown used to the distance, maybe even comfortable with it. The truth is, this distance is not inevitable, but it is dangerous, because when you stop noticing each other, you stop fighting for each other. And when you stop fighting for each other, you begin to drift into separate lives that just happen to overlap between dusk and dawn. If you've felt this quiet ache, you're not alone and you're not without hope. But first, you need to understand why this happens and why it can feel so impossible to reverse. This is where the healing begins, not with a grand gesture, not with some perfect speech, but with an awakening to the fact that closeness isn't just about proximity, it's about presence. It's about choosing to see and be seen again and again, even when it's easier to withdraw. And if you've forgotten how to do that, we'll walk together through the places where connection is lost and where it can be found again. The drift you feel did not happen overnight. It crept in quietly, so quietly that you barely noticed it at first. It wore the disguise of busyness, the disguise of exhaustion, the disguise of life simply moving forward. At first, it was harmless, or at least it seemed to be. A dinner, eaten in front of the television, instead of across from each other. A quick good night without looking up. A hug that was no longer a greeting, but a habit. You didn't think much of it then. They didn't either. But small distances, left unattended, become landscapes. And now you are standing on opposite shores, waving to each other across a silence that neither of you knows how to cross. Sometimes you try to convince yourself that this is just what long-term love becomes, that all relationships settle into this quiet stage where passion fades and comfort replaces connection. You tell yourself it's normal, even healthy, that stability is the goal. You remind yourself of the bills you've paid together, the errands you've run, the problems you've solved side by side. You build a case in your mind for why nothing is wrong. And yet late at night, another truth whispers. It's the voice that remembers how it used to be, the way your chest would ache when they weren't around, the way you would stay awake for hours just to keep talking, the way their laughter felt like it could carry you through anything. You remember tracing their face with your eyes as if memorizing it for a time when you might be apart. You remember wanting to know everything, what they feared, what they dreamed, what they would do if money and time didn't matter at all. That voice tells you something you've been trying not to admit. Love was never meant to be reduced to schedules and shared responsibilities. It was never meant to be measured only in years survived together. Love is not just staying under the same roof. It is seeing each other in ways the world cannot. It is noticing the way their eyes soften when they are tired. It is knowing the sound of their footsteps, even in a crowded room. It is remembering that they are more than just your person. They are still the stranger you once couldn't stop learning about. Disconnection doesn't always come from anger or betrayal. It comes when curiosity fades. When you stop asking how their day really felt and settle for how was it. When you stop wondering about the dream they've been holding quietly in their heart and start assuming they'll tell you if it matters. When you stop listening for the pauses in their words, the ones that carry what they couldn't say, you forget that a person is not a fixed image, but a river. They are always moving, always changing. And if you do not walk to the water's edge each day to see how they've shifted, you will wake up one morning to find the river has carved a new path far from you. Sometimes the drift feels safer than the truth because the truth demands action. It demands you say things that might feel awkward. I feel far from you. I miss us. I'm scared we're losing something we won't know how to get back. It demands you risk being met with silence or worse, indifference. And so you choose quiet, even when that quiet hurts more than anything they could have said. But here is the part you may have forgotten, and it matters more than anything. Distance can be closed. It will not close by accident. It will not close without intention, but it can close. And it starts with the smallest choices. Putting down your phone, holding their gaze a moment longer, touching their hand without needing a reason, asking a question and then actually listening for the answer. These small moments are not meaningless. They are the threads that weave closeness back into the fabric of your days. Before you can rebuild, you have to name what's been lost. You have to stand in front of it and say, we are not where we were. Not as a weapon, not as an accusation, but as a truth spoken in the hope of change. Sometimes the most loving thing you can say is, I miss you, even when you're right here. Because it's in that honesty, quiet, raw, and without blame, that the first bridge is built. And bridges are built not by avoiding the gap, but by facing it together, plank by plank, until one night you roll over and realize there is no gap left at all. Here is the deeper truth. Love doesn't die when people grow apart, it dies when they stop reaching for each other. The good news, the fragile, stubborn, beautiful news, is that reaching is always possible. Even now, even tonight, closeness is not an accident. It is not the natural result of time spent together, nor is it the reward for surviving the hard seasons. Closeness is built brick by brick, choice by choice, day after day, and when it fades, it can only be rebuilt the same way it was first made, with intention. There is no leap that will carry you across the distance in a single night, but there is a path, one that can be walked even from where you are now. and it rests on three simple but unshakable pillars: presence, curiosity, and courage. Presence is where it begins. You may think you're already present because you're physically there, because you share the same space, the same bed, the same life. But true presence is something else entirely. It's when you put down the knife while chopping vegetables because you want to hear the rest of their sentence. It's when you close the laptop, not just because they asked, but because you want to see the way their face moves when they talk about something that matters to them. It's the kind of attention that says, without words, you are worth my full focus right now. You remember when presents came easily, when you couldn't help but watch them across a crowded room, when you leaned forward at every story, when you caught every little change in their expression. Over time, the noise of life grew louder, and presence became something you assumed would happen by default. But presence isn't something that happens accidentally. It's a choice. It's the deliberate decision to make space in your mind for another person, even in the middle of your own chaos. And every time you choose it, the distance between you shrinks, even if only by a fraction. The second pillar is curiosity. In the beginning, you were endlessly curious about them. You wanted to know the details that no one else cared to ask. The smell of their childhood home, the song that made them cry without warning, the dream they carried but never told anyone else. Back then, their life felt like a book you couldn't stop reading. But somewhere along the way, you put the book down. Not because you stopped caring, but because you assumed you already knew the ending. Curiosity is what breathes life back into love, because people are never finished. The person you love today is not exactly the same as the one you met years ago. They have new thoughts, new fears, new hopes. If you stop asking, you stop discovering. If you stop discovering, you stop falling in love in new ways. Ask questions that open doors, not just check boxes. Instead of how was your day, ask what was the best part of today. Instead of are you okay, ask what's something you wish I understood about you right now. And when they answer, listen not just to their words, but to their pauses, their sighs, the way they shift their weight before speaking. That is where the truth lives. The third pillar is courage, because rebuilding connection will require you to step into spaces that feel uncomfortable. It will require you to say the things you've been holding back. I feel far from you. I miss us. I'm scared we're drifting. It will require you to be vulnerable first, even when you're not sure they'll follow. And courage is not about pretending you're unafraid. It's about reaching anyway. It's holding out your hand without knowing if it will be taken. It's leaning in when your instinct is to pull away. These three pillars, presence, curiosity, and courage, do not work in isolation. Presence anchors you in the same moment. Curiosity draws you toward each other. Courage carries you through the discomfort of the conversations you've been avoiding. Together, they create the conditions where love can breathe again. It is not instant, it is not effortless, but if you hold to them, you will feel the shift, at first in moments, then in days, and eventually in the way you look at each other across the room. And here's the quiet truth that makes this possible. You don't have to wait for them to start. Closeness can begin with one person deciding to show up differently, one person choosing to notice, one person lighting the candle again, even if the room has been dark for a long time. Often the other person will notice the warmth before they even understand where it's coming from. And warmth, once felt, is hard to ignore. If you start here, with these pillars, lived out in small ways, you will find that the ocean between you is not as wide as it seemed. Every act of presence, every question asked from curiosity, every moment of courage is a plank laid across the gap. And one night, you will roll over in bed and realize you are close enough to hear their breathing again, not just with your ears, but with your heart. You don't rebuild connection in grand gestures. You rebuild it in small moments that no one else sees. A quiet decision to pause what you're doing because their voice just shifted in a way you recognize. A hand resting gently on theirs while they're talking, reminding them that they are not speaking into emptiness. A question asked with genuine interest, not to fill silence, but to step inside their world for a moment. This is where love returns, not with fireworks, but with the steady lighting of small candles. The first practice is intentional presence. Tonight, when you sit beside them, at dinner, on the couch, in bed, choose one moment to give them your full attention, not half, not while scrolling, not while your mind is running ahead to the next task. Just one moment where they are the only thing in your mind. Look at their face as they speak. Notice the small details you might have missed, the way their eyes lift when they're thinking, the way they shift their weight when something matters to them. It may feel subtle, but presence is felt. It says, "You matter enough for me to pause my world." The second practice is renewed curiosity. Pick one question each day that goes deeper than the usual. Ask about a dream they haven't shared in a while, or a childhood memory that shaped them. Ask what they've been thinking about lately when they're quiet. Ask about something small, like the last thing that made them laugh when you weren't around. Don't just hear their words, let yourself feel them. Imagine their answer as a gift, one you've been trusted to hold. The more you do this, the more you'll remember that they are not a finished story, they are a living one. The third practice is acts of quiet courage. This is the hardest one, because it means speaking the words you've been holding back. It means saying, "I've missed you," even if you're not sure how it will land. It means reaching for their hand without knowing if they will squeeze back. It means sharing something vulnerable, a fear, a longing, a truth, without hiding behind a joke or brushing it aside. Courage is the bridge between wanting closeness and living in it. And each time you practice it, the bridge becomes stronger. These practices are not about perfection. Some days you will forget. Some days your presence will feel distracted. Your curiosity will run shallow. Your courage will falter. That's okay. The goal is not to never drift. The goal is to always notice when you do, and to turn back before the gap grows too wide. Love is not built on never getting it wrong. It's built on noticing when you have, and choosing to come back anyway. You might wonder how long it will take before you feel the difference. It won't happen in a single night, but you may notice small shifts, the way their eyes meet yours a second longer, the way their hand lingers on your arm, the way they share something unprompted. These moments are the first threads of reconnection, and if you keep weaving them, one day you'll find the fabric of your relationship is warmer, softer, and stronger than before. Remember this. The bed you share is not just a piece of furniture. It is the place where the last moments of your day meet the first moments of your next. It can be a place where love feels absent, or a place where love rests between you like something sacred. You get to choose which it will be, not all at once, but in each small choice you make tonight, and tomorrow, and the next day after that. So start tonight, before you turn out the light, before you roll over, before sleep takes you. Let yourself be present. Ask something real. Say something vulnerable. Let your hand find theirs, not to fix everything, but to say, "I'm here," because sometimes that is the beginning, not of what you used to have, but of something new, something deeper, something that can only be built when two people decide to see each other again. And when you wake tomorrow, remember, love does not grow because we feel it. It grows because we choose it. Every day, every glance, every small act is another chance to close the gap, until there is no gap at all, until the bed no longer feels like two separate worlds, but one shared heartbeat in the quiet dark.